Hello and welcome back to Ahead of the Curve. This is your host, Jonathan Gellner, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today we're welcomed by Matt Denny, the head baseball coach at Casteel High School in Arizona. Matt is a good friend and a former guest of the show, and one that I knew that I had to bring back. Matt just finished his 4th year at Casteel High School and took over the reins after being at Greenway High School and Mountain Pointe. In 2023, they were a resounding success and won the Arizona 5A State Championship. So on the show, Matt and I discussed implementing culture at a brand new high school. We talk about their standards of behavior, and we take a deep dive into implementing the mental game and what it takes to win at a high level. You're going to love this episode with Matt Denny. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. So you are a former guest, but I couldn't think of a better guest to come back. You know, I've taken about a year off of the podcast and you just won a state championship. So congratulations for that. And I thought you'd be the perfect, getting back on the mic, needing to learn from somebody guest. So again, congratulations.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
Of course. So, I want to start with, Casteel is a fairly new school. You were talking earlier, you said it was established in 2015 and they had 2 full baseball seasons before you took over. So that's interesting in itself. So I would love to know, you go from brand new school with no tradition to now in your 4th year, you win a state championship. So tell us a little bit about, what you did to get the ball rolling. And if you could take us back a couple of years ago of just hey, what were your first couple of steps that you took to be able to try and establish what you wanted there?
Yeah, no, I think the first year, I think the school opened was 2015, and then they did have 4 seasons, but I think only 2 of them were with a varsity group. The dynamic was a little bit interesting. I actually took over mid-year, so they let go of the coach in about September, October. I had a really, really good group over at Mountain Pointe, senior group that was actually ranked nationally, so it was a tough decision for sure. But after taking a look at the program and the direction that I thought it could go in, and I've always wanted to do something and have my own tradition. At Greenway, there was already a rich tradition there. At Mountain Pointe, there was a very rich tradition, and not to say that there wasn't tradition, but obviously there wasn't a rich history behind Casteel program. So I feel like I could put a stamp on it and make it what I thought it could be. And so no, really it was just about taking over mid-year. Not a lot of people from the school had probably heard of me very much, and it was really just asking the boys. We had we have a slogan every year, and that year I took over, the slogan was "Will you, not can you?" And what that meant was, I know we can play baseball. I know there's if I ask you guys to run on and off the field, I know that you can. Will you? If I ask you to do some dirty work, will you do it? I know everyone can't. The things that I'm going to ask you guys to do, these players, I know that they can. It was a matter of will. And I felt like that was a kind of a perfect slogan for that first year, asking people to be selfless, asking people to get on and off the field, which is a cornerstone and a foundation of programs that I've had.
Sure.
It's extremely important to us for so many reasons, whether it's playoff stuff or just showing younger guys how to attack the game. So that was kind of the initial mantra, I guess. And man, those guys hammered it home. In November, they were selfless. They were completely for the team. We have a saying in our program, for the brand. Everything that we do is for the brand of Casteel baseball. And those initial guys in 2019, 20, that COVID year were incredible. They, I text each and every one of them this last couple weeks ago after we won, and made sure that they knew that they were just as much a part of this as anybody because of what they did for that first 30, 60 days when I got the job.
No, I love hearing that. And, it's you, the more that I get to know you, the more I realize, you're a super organized person, but you're also very heavily into the mental game. And so we shared a couple book resources this year, and you were talking about a book, I think it was called Compete. And you were talking about, hey, this is something that we bought for everybody in our program. Would you mind sharing kind of, what you did with that and then how that resonated with this group?
Yeah. Matter of fact, we went to like an all district spring meeting for Chandler Unified School District, and it was track and baseball and all the sports, male and female. And, they hand you this book. And to be honest, I get the book and it's like a, piece of paper on, and I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I already do so much with, I feel like mental gaming culture that I kind of slept it off for a second. And then I just read about 2 sentences, and luckily it kind of caught my attention. And then I read it all that night. It's not a very long book, but it's just about what it means to be a competitor. And I think there's so many kids nowadays that watch a lot of TV, and they watch, some things that they think are competing, but in reality, it's the opposite of it. And, competing is not being so mad that you come in and, because you want to get a hit so bad that you slam your helmet because you're, a lot of coaches will say, oh, he's just a competitor or whatever. But there's so many pieces to being a competitor, being calm, being confident, competing with your teammates at training, and just no matter what, competing when the score is, we say it all the time, like, we don't give away at bats. If we're getting beat 10-0, up 10-0, like, you can tell when somebody's giving away an at bat, and that's just not being a competitor. And so it's something that I had every player read. One of my assistant coaches, Connor Woods, came up with a great, handout, basically said, like, here's some things to look for, and then gave the boys some opportunity to address some things on their own and what they, what they thought of it. And that was huge because they actually had some things that enlightened us, and like, okay, I can see that a little bit. And it fit just perfect. We have the Saturday after tryouts, we have a classroom day, and we'll have a few of them throughout the year, but the Saturday classroom day is our most important day of the entire year. It's a very long day. They get their uniforms. They're excited about that. My wife makes this little, goodie bag for everybody, and congratulations. We give them a little metal charm brand thing, tell people what it means, and just explain to them how important this is to me, to our staff, and to everyone involved. It's kind of like a rite of passage day. And there's a lot of classroom work. There's some articles, there's some motivational stuff, there's some perspective things. And so we added this compete book to it. And I really think it's a game changer. We were able to go back and draw back from some of the things that it said in that book. And, we knew we were going to have a good year. We were very talented, but we had a loss about midway through the year that was just a gross loss. We didn't compete. We didn't, we showed up, thought we were just going to show up with our record and bully somebody, and things went the wrong way. We were a cool guy. We were, just not working hard. And matter of fact, one of the players I heard talk about just saying that we need to compete a little bit better. And so, we revisited that the next day and had another classroom session that just said, hey, remember this, remember this, remember this. And kind of opened up a little bit to the guys. And, I went off that day and kind of explained to them why I was upset. It's not the loss. It's just, that's not us. And they handled that so well, and we're able to draw back from that book. And it's something we'll read every year. Every year we're going into the season, I think it's really important to understand what it means to compete and what it looks like.
Well, and it also, it goes right into your personality too. You're a very competitive, fiery type person, and I'm sure that's how you played whenever you were a player. And so getting them to take ownership of that, but that's also a reflection of you too. So, I just finished my first year here at Claremore, and there's days that I'm like, man, they're not getting what we're trying to do here, or they're not, because when you change coaches, the culture is going to change inevitably, just based on personality and just difference in different things. And as the season went on, there were times I was like, oh, okay, like this is really good. Oh, okay, like we're reverting back to old differences and patterns, or they're one way or the other. It's hard.
Yeah.
Like year one was really hard. So I guess my question, and luckily we had great kids who were really like gave me a chance, and so I definitely want to put that out there too. But also I want to know, like, when did you finally feel like it was starting to move in the direction of how you wanted things to be run? Because again, you're brand new. The culture and the school is brand new. When did you feel like it was starting to take shape? And then was there any like things that helped you move in that direction?
Yeah, I think I really believe everything starts with the kids. And so when you start seeing kids, monitor, I guess, or coach kids in a good way, you always have those kind of leaders where it's like they're bossy around the coach and you could tell it's not really good leadership. And when kids can handle criticism from other kids, that's when I kind of knew. And we got that in that first year. Unfortunately, or I guess fortunately and unfortunately, we had a mass exodus of about 5 or 6 kids when I took over that I don't think really liked the direction that we were going in. I think they wanted some things differently than what I was planning. And so they left to a different school. And I think that gave opportunity for the kids that I have now to get started a little early. And everybody knew, like, this is the expectation, this is the standards, this is what we're doing. And now we have the right pieces to do this the right way. But I think, we can come up every year. Like I said, we have a mantra or we have a saying, or we have a lot of different things in our program that we try to distinguish ourselves from other programs. I think when you do things differently, then that helps with culture. But the reality is that kids are the ones who create the culture. We have a saying, again, in our program called For the Brand. So after the kids say that for a little while and they buy into that, now they're saying FERDA, short for, for the brand. And that's something that they're using and it's not forced. That's kind of when I noticed, like, we might be onto something.
Sure.
Really buying into being a Casteel baseball player. And they like the fact that we're different than other places because we do X, Y, and Z, and there's a few things that I can touch on if you want me to later or whatever. But those types of things, I think, give our guys, like, they like being different. Everybody takes ground balls. Everybody takes BP. Everybody does bullpens, but what are we doing differently with our ground balls and our BP approach? And what we're doing is we're proud of it. And it does create and allow us to have a good culture. I look at SEC schools and I always explain to kids, like, in my opinion, SEC has the best culture. You look at their crowds, they all have something different that they're doing. A&M does the ball 4, ball 8, one of them does the beer garden in right field. And, like, everybody has something that they do different. And I think that's why, to be honest, obviously they have great athletes and things like that. But those are the little things that kind of set them apart, in my opinion, than others. So.
Yeah, completely get it. So you talked about doing things differently. I'd love you to be able to, like, lean on that a little bit and give us some different practical things that you feel like you do, and they may be based on your personality. But I would love to be able to give our listeners the opportunity to steal some stuff from you if they're like, okay, yeah, I definitely want to steal some stuff from Matt and this type of thing.
And I think some of it isn't like something that, it's not a drill or something that would help you, I guess, but it's, I guess. Off the top of my head, let's say during batting practice, somebody makes a web gem or just a great play. If somebody yells out, hey, like that real loud, it could be a player, it could be a coach. Everyone on the field, from guys doing bunt station, guys in the cage, guys throwing a bullpen, individual defense, whatever it is, everyone at the exact same time yells out, hey. And to me, that's different than what most places do, I'm assuming, but also it gives an incentive. Like, why would a guy in center field run to the gap and dive for a ball if he's going to do it and one guy is going to say, nice play? That makes him hungry.
I love that.
Where it's like, I'm going to get 23 dudes and 4 coaches yelling, hey, if I get to this ball. I feel like that gives you a little bit extra juice to work harder during BP and get a better jump and things like that. Infielders, we have something that we say, get out of the circle. I used to hate as an infielder where, let's say there's 3 guys at shortstop and one guy's at short and he's sitting there waiting for a ball to be hit to him, or maybe he takes a whole hitter and doesn't get any ground balls and the next guy gets 3 ground balls. I feel like there's a lot of standing around. So every infielder on every rep, regardless if there's guys behind him or not, they have to get out of their circle. So if he's playing shortstop and there's a lefty up and he hits a ball out of the yard in right field, he is to act like and pretend that he can catch it for 2 or 3 steps. So what that does is it starts to let them read, or get better reads, I guess, on middle pitch, away pitch, and kind of cheating to give yourself an extra step or 2 of range. And I just think it's more fun than leaning on one leg. You're getting all kinds of reads and jumps and things like that. So we're on them. We'll yell at them out of the circle. If we have to say it more than one time a day, that means they're having a lazy day and they're not for the brand. They're not working for what we're looking for. So that's one. We have a thing called 5 for 5 or 4 for 4, whatever BP we're doing for that day. If it's rounds of 5 and it's hit and run, and they get all their hit and runs down, I'll yell out, or one of the assistants will yell out real loud, 5 for 5. And then again, they say, hey. And usually that's cool because they know who did it. They'll look and be like, who just executed everything. And to me, like, BP wasn't my, I wasn't going to knock the ball out of the yard all the time. I wasn't a great hitter, but there was things where it'd be hit and run, move them, score them, and I'd have a perfect day. But I wasn't knocking the ball off the wall, and my BP looked irrelevant, compared to some of the other guys that were just drilling balls up against the wall. So,
Sure.
I've talked about our BP sessions before, but I really don't like BP the old-fashioned way. I want to find out hitters and execute different things, finding hitters through BP, and so that's a way to do that. Double play balls. We grade out every double play ball, whether it's drills or guys are even doing it in games sometimes, which is kind of weird. But as a receiver on a double play, second base or shortstop, they're either saying plus or minus on every throw, and that gives the infielder, affirmation, or tells them like, hey, I don't like it here, or I do like it here. But I tell them to be very vocal. A lot of times we'll be running 3 or 4 machines at home plate, so there's a lot going on. I might not be watching the middle infield work. I might be working with first base, but I also can hear, if it's minus, then sometimes I'll shut it down and say, what we got going on here, boys? Like, let's focus on these throws, putting it on his chest and grading them out. So we know where we're at. We have something called recover with ground balls, where as soon as somebody boots a ball, the whole place will yell recover. And that's just a way to get your footwork and don't give up on the play, get the ball in your hand and either make a strong throw for an out or
Sure.
possibly backdoor somebody. And then really, like, from start to finish on game days, we really try to, I don't know if intimidate's the right word, but I tell our guys, I want to be up 2-0 before the game starts. And that's how we walk into the dugout, how we stretch. Our pregame is so important to us. Sometimes to a fault, sometimes got to shake guys if they have a bad pregame and let them know it actually doesn't count. But we take so much pride in working really quickly through our pregame and being aggressive. So those are just little things I think that help us, I feel like, be a little bit different than other places. But
Sure. I may have stolen your trash talk BP idea. So I don't know if you want to share that one or not, but oh my gosh, that was such a fun day.
Yeah, so we have something called clutch up. There's an infield, there's an outfield, and a hitter. Sometimes there's one group that's off. A lot of times we'll have them working on the tee or bunting, or sometimes we'll literally have that whole group up against the turtle, and they're trying to get in the heads of the hitters, talking all kinds of junk, making fun of them, teasing them. We try to lay off the moms and girlfriends at that time, but we give them whatever they want for some smoke and trash talk. And
I had to make that connotation too. I was like, guys, like, no girlfriends, no moms, like, or sisters. We had to say sisters too.
Yeah, there you go, exactly. But no, if it helps, guys that walk out of the cage and they're starting to get pissed off, it's like, well, that's going to be the same thing with the other team. Control yourself. Use it as motivation. Try to tunnel it. The only way you're going to win is by having great rounds and looking at them like, this isn't working. You guys better try something else to get in my head. But that's that. We always try to stay competitive with that. And we'll do that clutch up BP, that point system BP probably twice a week in the fall, and then during the season, quite often early on.
I love
You
it.
know, after the spring break, we kind of taper that down, but we do it works all kinds of different things, infield, outfield angles, and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a good one for us.
Did I ever tell you the story about ours the day
No,
after?
no.
Oh God. Okay. So we have this one kid who's just like a super good athlete, and he's football player mentality. So like his go to is like, I'm gonna try harder, or I'm like
Hmm.
super negative self talk, but he wants to
Hmm.
be really good. And like I said, really good athlete. Really, he struggled a little bit hitting this year, and we did this, and he's up there, he's hitting BP, and they're just letting him have it, like I mean, just wearing him out, and he's really having a hard time, like because you can't say anything to the guys,
Right,
and
right.
so his last round, the entire defense sat down, like on his last round. So they
Oh,
sat
jeez.
down, and his his first swing, he hits it right to a kid, and he didn't even have to move. He just hit it like right to him, and the entire defense just walked off the field. And I was like,
Oh
"Oh my
my
gosh,
gosh.
it's either really good or
Yeah,
really bad." But I couldn't help myself. Like I was trying to stay neutral through the whole thing, but I was just like, "Oh my gosh, that's
yeah.
baseball has a way of telling us things that we need to get better at all the time."
Yeah, no, it's a really good when we do it like that. You know, there are a couple kids. You know, I can think of a few off the top of my head that I'm like, man, this could get ugly. They might lose it, but those are the dogs that you got to find out. You know, because that's what May
Hmm.
looks like, and it's
Absolutely.
never easy. And there's teams that'll try to get in your head, and you know, if you listen to the noise and let it bother you. I had a lot of kids my first couple of years that are, you know, we had to completely change the dugout. The dugout on our end was gross. I mean, it was like we're really saying this, you know, and we'd even be losing
Hmm.
sometimes. We'd be losing 3-0, and guys would be saying things like out of the dugout, and I'm looking at them like, what is this? Why is this okay? You know, what is this?
Sure.
You know, I make a rule. I say if your mom or your grandma know that you're talking some smack, it's probably not funny and it's probably not cool. You know, like I'm okay
Right.
with getting in the ear a little bit, you know, as a side note, but you know, so kids need to hear those, you know, things and get in their head. And like you said, we got kids that'll start white knuckling it and getting more mad, and they think, you know, they're going to
Hmm.
football mentality their way into success. And it's like, man, this teaches them that it's the completely other way around, and calm
Sure.
yourself down and win. So yeah, it's good.
Right. Well, and it's a we talk about the mental game a lot, but it's a realistic thing. You can't take it personal because, like you
Right.
said, like you go to say tournament, they're looking up your Instagram profiles and they know
Yeah.
exactly who all the different
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
So,
No
but
doubt.
I do want to hit on the dugout piece because it's like I'll be honest, it's an epidemic with like getting like there's either one or the other. Like you say nothing, or there's a lot of teams that will like way over the line stuff
Yeah.
because it's stuff they see on TikTok that gets a million likes that like maybe want just stupid stuff that they got onto anyways. But how do we get better at teaching that aspect of it? Because we talk about being good teammates, we talk about being into the game, but I've tried to do a really good job of teaching like things to say or situations to say them or standing by guys and like, hey, like echo what other people, things like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like I would love to be able to do a better job of teaching that aspect. Do you have any advice?
Yeah. No, we had a big problem. Like I said, when I first took over, where it was like, and to be honest, this was when I was at my former school, Mountain Point. It was constantly like, who could be funnier one step? You know, like someone says
Mm-hmm.
something, and then everyone hears it
Right.
and says, "Oh my gosh, they said that." Okay, so now let's do this, and then it just turns into like back and forth until people are saying stuff that's just so ridiculous that you're wondering what are we doing here? You know, and really that's not focusing on the next pitch. That's not focusing on anything. So what I've tried to do, and honestly, our guys, I think the first year were not understanding. As a matter of fact, a player came to me and said, "Coach, these guys are talking all kinds of crap, and you just expect us to take it and sit here and do nothing."
Mm-hmm.
And I tried
Right.
to explain to him, like, no, we don't use it as, you know, use it as motivation. Like, we don't need to answer back like that. We need to answer back by putting up some runs ourselves. And then, you know, you're at second base and the shortstop who was running his mouth earlier walks by you. You could say something under your breath like, "Man, you know, this is too much for you guys. Don't sleep on us," or something like that. That's going to make him mad. But we don't need everyone in the yard to know, you know, that we're gonna talk back the same way that they do. And I think,
Right.
when you're saying things, like I said, that are inappropriate in the dugout, we don't allow our guys to say anything to the other team. Pretty much. I mean, very, very seldom do we even allow anything like that. So our assistant coaches are informed to shut it down. Don't act like that. Don't be a clown. Handle your own business. But the way I look at it is this, and I tell people, like, if you really want to be the guy or the team, you're not going to do it by running your mouth all the time. If you're playing basketball as an 18-year-old kid and you're playing a 9-year-old, a 9-year-old in basketball, and the 9-year-old walks on the court and starts running his mouth to you, the first thing you're going to do is not fire back at a 9-year-old and start talking crap to him. You're going to laugh and be like, geez,
Right.
This guy has no idea what's about to hit him. You know what I mean?
Sure.
To me,
That's good.
that's when you have them, when you don't have to answer back with, rhetoric and comments and silliness and stupidness, because that's what these teams want. These renegade teams want to get into a pissing match with you. Instead, we in our dugout are laughing, and we have a saying in our program that says, we are not cool guys. We don't care. We don't care. We're not going to be cool in front of everyone. We're going to win the game, slap hands, and then say, these guys are jokes. We're not going to listen to that. And it's a lot more satisfying when you don't come back over the top and make it a clown show. Rather, these are 9-year-olds. These guys are kids to us. It sounds cocky. It sounds arrogant, but I think it's a way for you to get your club to think, we don't need to be clowns. We did exactly what we wanted to do. And it's satisfying knowing that we talked to our own guys. We laughed at what they were saying, and it doesn't bother us. It doesn't mess with us. When you get into the pimping things and showing people up, the pride comes before the fall and leaves you susceptible for getting buried the wrong way. So
Sure. No, I'm right there with you. And it is something. So it's something that we have to address. And I really like the analogy that you use, because kids are going to remember stories much more than they're going to remember us harping on them about it the whole time. And I think that's really good. So you talked about standards earlier and just different things that you expect. And man, it's like I'm sitting like taking feverish notes going, holy crap, like how would I implement all of this now? Like you can't just now. And so over time you've gotten to be able to do all of those things, but give us a few of, like, you mentioned, we jog on and off the field, like standard, this is what we do here type things, but what are some other ones?
Yeah, no, that one, I'll go back to that one because it's a lot bigger than that. It's not jog, it's not run fast. It's literally run as fast as you can. We say run like someone's chasing you. And does that give us an advantage? Not really. I think there's times where it feels like there's some pressure on teams when we're, running by the team as they're coming in or off or whatever. But to me, that is a selfless act. I'm up to plate and I strike out with the bases loaded right down the middle. I'm really mad. Or let's say it's an umpire, bad call, terrible call. I'm really upset. If I'm out there still showing that, bad shoulders, jogging on, usually the kid grabs the ball and throws it as hard as he can at the first baseman or the, guy off catcher or whatever. And it's like, to me, that all of that just screams that this is about that player. And our standards are being selfless. It doesn't matter. This was the best group I've had, I think, in 23 years, that they did not care who got the glory. It was about winning and being for each other. I mean, there's some seniors that, didn't play towards the end of the year that are some of my favorite kids I ever coached that just weren't getting it done. And how they responded helped the person that took their spot into having, hitting over 500 in the playoffs and doing those kinds of things. So the sprinting on and off is essentially like the most important thing in our entire program. And that has been since I started coaching, and that's non-negotiable. And that is something that I decided in 2008, and I tell parents at the beginning of the year, like, when you see someone come in and fire their helmet, slam their bat, not run on the field, and they get taken out of the game, you're wasting your breath to come talk to me about this. That is not my decision. My decision was made, 15 years ago. That is their decision that they chose to do that. And we used the summer and the fall. I mean, it happened today. We literally, our game today, the kid just jogged out to right field, and he's new and he doesn't understand everything. But I immediately looked at someone on the bench. I don't even think it was an outfielder, to be honest. I said, go to right. And the kid was confused. He comes in and we explained to him, like, if you want to play here, you will run as fast as you can to the outfield. And what that does is just tells them everything about what we're doing. Like, if you can't, will you, not can you? I know you can, and it's a rule here. So you're going to do it, or you got to find somewhere else to go or somewhere else to be. So that's part of a standard that helps. And then being selfless and being on time. I mean, those are the big ones. Like, just, it does. Yep. It's not about me. It's not about the player, the player. It's about the group. And a lot of times, I think we have 8 or 9 Division I players that maybe a little less than that, something like that, whatever. But it's really easy for them to be thinking about the draft, for them to be thinking about Instagram, for them to be thinking about, all kinds of things. And so we say, be where your feet are. And that means if you're at first base, during BP, then be the best first baseman you can at that time. Or if you're on the bench because you haven't been going good, then be the best bench player you can at the time. Or, I think those standards of being selfless and just, getting on off the field like crazy are some staples that have helped us. We sprint on walks, we get out. I feel like when you watch a game, and now our kids are so used to it that a lot of times they'll look out and see the other team kind of, jogging out to their positions, and it gives us an advantage. Our kids are like, look at these guys. They don't even want to be here, and awesome. And it doesn't really give you a physical advantage, but I do feel like it gives us a mental advantage at times to do things that maybe we're not supposed to do.
Sure. No, I like that. I also love the different phrases that you use with each group. What are some different examples from the ones that you guys have used in the past?
Okay. So first year we had, like I said, will you, not can you. I think the year after that might have been, I'll just name some, it doesn't matter the year. Adversity equals opportunity. I think a lot of times that was a year that we had just an insane schedule. We had the toughest schedule in Arizona. It was just the powerhouses that we played, and tournament games that we played was, if it wasn't the best, it was top 3 to 5 without a doubt. And we had 7 starters at different times miss about 30 games. So we're heading into barely getting into playoffs last year at 13-17 record, and end up getting to the semifinal game. And adversity was guys getting hurt. Adversity was playing a tough schedule. Adversity was these things. And many times, with that compete book we talked about, like, that's a time for teams to kind of pucker, or it's a time to say, man, this is a great opportunity to do something special, or to, something like that. So that was one of them. This year it was, we're not cool guys. And I think we were more talented this year, and I knew we were going to have a good year. So it was really easy for guys to get caught up in, where they're going to school, or, just being really cool, and it's, to be honest, like, the social media that I watch and see from other places all across the country is like, man, hitting a game winner and showing off a little bit, that's cool. But, getting a single, 2-run single in the 3rd inning, and it's you're a 5-9 to first base, pointing in the other team's dugout and barely touching first. I mean, to me, that's gross. To me, that's not cool. To me, that's just like, right. Wow, that's bad. And I've really coached that to these guys. And to be honest, again, I think they look and see that stuff, and they almost get angry. Like, man, these guys don't deserve to win if they're going to be doing this kind of stuff.
Right.
So you won't see a lot of our guys posting stuff and doing things like that. And I think that was part of the slogan that we used for that.
Sure. Yeah, actually, while you're thinking, I actually just had that same talk with I'm coaching a summer group as well, not with Claremore, but right. with some different kids out of Oklahoma City in the area, and we just talked about being ambassadors of the game. Like, the game was entrusted to us, and how are we going to leave it? These kids are 16 years old,
Yeah.
And we've spent our life doing this and are going to
Yep.
spend most of the rest of our life doing this and just understanding the meaning behind it. Like it's
Yeah.
going to be here a lot longer than us. And it was before us for a lot longer than that. Just making sure that like the game was entrusted to us and leaving it better than we found it. And we'd had that because like you said, summer ball is some of the best and the worst of everything, like the
Yeah.
extremes. And so just trying to make sure, hey, like the group that we played did not uphold the standard of what we expected out of our group. And so
Hmm.
just using them as an example of, hey, like this is why, like college scouts are coming here to look at you. What are they going to expect whenever they see these type of things? Like these are the type of things that they're not going to want to teach you that you should
Right.
already know. So they're looking for reasons not to recruit you, like just to check you off the list. But
Yeah. I
yeah, it's
like
definitely a
that.
thing.
Ambassadors of the game. I like that. Yeah. Respect the game. Respect, be humble and respect your opponent too. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
those are cool. I like that. We had
Very cool.
two or 3 years ago, I think we had 2 years ago was Pound the Rock, and that was again a tough
Nice.
schedule
Let's
year,
go.
but just keep, Greg Popovich type stuff. It feels like it's not doing anything, but just keep pounding it. It'll break. So just things like that we try to talk about on that Saturday that I told
Sure.
you about. We introduced, the slogan for that year. So
I love that. How do you come up with it?
our staff and I honestly just kind of think of things. We had one this year. It was just one word. It was just trenches, and we just elaborate on that. If you're in warfare, trench warfare, like there's times where you're not going to make it out of that trench, but you just keep fighting with whatever you have, to the last second, and you want guys in the trenches, and you're able to kind of use that type of slogan on a bunch of different sayings and different deals. Like you got to trust guys behind you in the trench. You got to want to be in there and know that you're there for a reason and things like that. And so when you hear the kids kind of say things like that,
Sure.
it's pretty cool too. They're taking it
Absolutely.
and running with it.
No doubt. So this let's flash forward to this upcoming fall. So this will air within the next couple of days. So it's not like
Mhm.
most of the guys that are listening to this are probably decompressing from the season.
Right.
But planning out the fall, what are some different things that you think are really important to hit on, and looking forward to you because I know you're a planner. So looking
Mhm.
forward to you for the fall, like how do you win it? Like what are the things that you need to accomplish to make sure that you guys are ready to have a repeat run next spring?
Yeah. One of the things that people have asked is like postseason play, and it might be something that we talk about later, but I think it's something that goes along the lines with this. Like what do you do for the postseason when you have success in the postseason? And honestly, it started like this morning today for us. It starts. We had a younger group today go, but the expectations and during we don't in the summer we don't have actual practice or training. I guess we get to the game an hour before every game, and we have literally an hour long practice. We hit off these things called hole balls for about 20 minutes. We take ground balls with bases out in the outfield and do fly balls, but we constantly talk about the little things. We don't keep track of who hits batting average or anything like that, even errors and stuff like that. It's all about the tangibles. Like, are you again getting on and off the field? Are you, getting hit by pitch if the ball's in a situation? How is your ball and dirt reads? Like, it's all about the small things. And I'm a firm believer that those things are going to be the difference. And
Hmm.
it's really not something that you can practice, or train for 3 times a year, ball and dirt drill, and then expect people to do it. And it's something that you have to work on constantly in the summer and in the fall. And so one of the biggest things we do, and I got this from a book. Well, I read it. I've done it before the book, but I got a couple more pieces from Culture Code, and that's, like debriefing. We spend so much, our parents probably hate it, but we
Mm.
spend so much
Yeah.
time after the game. We're nitpicking, all of us have a little note card. All of my assistants have a note card, and we write down everything that we see that could have been a game changer or was a game changer. And that's, ball and dirt read. It's, not recovering the way we are supposed to, taking a bad angle, all kinds of things. And so I start and I list everything that I saw, and then whatever I miss, another assistant comes in behind and picks up. And usually each coach, 3 or 4 coaches, has something to say on what was really good and what was really bad. And we talk about those in front of the group, good or bad. Sometimes it's, hey man, like this today, that play was awful. And here's why. And this is, to be honest, that changed the game completely. And it's not to make the player feel bad. It's just letting them know that there's accountability for everything we do. Love them to death. They know that, but we're going to talk in front of the group on positive and negative. And so I think that they're accountable for their mistakes, and they know that. I think it's when you make a mistake and you can say, hey, that's me, man, I screwed up. It happens. Oh, well, let's move on. To me, I was always like, when I made a big mistake, I would always love to go to the pitcher and say, gosh, dang it, man, that's me, pat my chest. I'm really sorry. And it's really easy this day and age to say, oh, it was just one error. I haven't made an error in 7 games. Mm-hmm. Jimmy made 4 errors in 2. You know what I mean? Like, we don't do that. We just own up to it, know what you did wrong, move on, and go from there. But that's part of what we do in the off season for our games. And then for fall baseball, there's some different blocks that we'll go through. At the beginning, it's just getting our feet wet, doing a lot of video analysis and getting some swing thoughts. We lose about 6 to 7 weeks for overseeding, and then we'll go in the cages and bullpen only, and then back out on the field for the competitive reps moving into December, January.
I like it. So we actually, talking about the my bad thing, we actually outlawed my bad because I felt like it was becoming just the initial excuse of like, oh yeah, that's my bad. Like, you're not taking ownership. You're just saying what you think we want to hear. And so we started to do like something different. Like, instead of saying my bad, we started to point at somebody like, hey, like whoever, like let's say shortstop makes an error, he's got to point at the pitcher and say, I got you. Yeah. Instead of like, it's my bad. So now I'm like trying to get out of myself of like, oh, we know, like the whole crowd, like everybody in the stadium knows that it was your bad, but what are you going to do about it? So then it was like, okay, I got you. Like, I'm back in it. So trying to move, like you talk about, the mental game being one of the separators, it's trying to get them to move to the next pitch instead of being selfish. And that's like that running on and off the field for you. And we talk about even like you got until you take off your gloves to be mad about it. Like, you bring your glove in, you made an error, you bring your glove in, you take it off, it's over. I like that. You just struck out, bases loaded, you take off your gloves, it's over. You got to get over it. And then if you do it past that, then it's like you said, you're thinking about more about yourself than you are the team, and it's hard, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah. I saw something the other day, college baseball, and a guy was hitting, and I don't remember what it was, but it's something I'm going to implement next year. Our guys don't even know it yet, but along those same lines, I hate when people say my bad or, whatever they're saying. I appreciate the gesture, but we're going to do something next year where the kid makes an error and he's just going to kind of pound his chest with his fist to the pitcher, and the pitcher's going to do it back to him, kind of saying like, same thing. I got you. Like, give me another one. They're saying my bad, but without, that's just a dead term to me. Like you said, it's just constantly like my bad. So I think this kind of gives the fielder some confidence and the pitcher like, hey, okay, you made a mistake. Let's get another one. And it might be a good culture thing as well.
Yeah. Have you ever, so I think that Sue Inquist was on Sheets' podcast, but have you ever heard her thing called Station 7?
No.
So she had it was called a failure recovery station. And she actually like put them into a super hard situation in practice where they like had next to like 0% chance of like winning this. So let's say you're like doing different stations around the field. One of them's called Station 7. And she had like every time that they made an error, they had to go through their failure recovery routine. And it was like, she actually said my bad, which, she's won 1,000 national championships, so she can do whatever she wants. But it was, and I stole the pointing of the teammate to her, but she would say my bad. She would like she would give the outs. So like giving the outs to the rest of the group, however many outs there were, and then look at the team and say, I got you, I'm back, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, like practicing that because, in the heat of the moment, they're going to forget. But actually like giving them, because I think that's where a lot of our like kids that react very negatively, they don't know how else to react. So it's like you said with like the white knuckles, trying to fight somebody, like that's their initial instinct. But now what do you want? Like, what can you do? Like, what are your options? And so giving them some different things that get, because everybody is afraid of everybody else's opinions and ending up on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok and getting embarrassed. Right.
Yeah.
So just trying to get, like you said, get them out of themselves, but also giving them some different things as, I don't know. It's something that we're going to try. And it's something that like you said,
I like that
you guys are trying to do too. But whenever she started doing that, I was like, what? Like, okay, now I'm starting to see like why you won. I think she won like 11 national championships or something stupid like that. So
yeah.
I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we'll do things, and I mentioned this I think maybe on the when we had the podcast before, but like we'll have days of BP where it's feel good days, and then we'll have days where it's not feel good days, and sometimes we'll tell them ahead of time like, hey, buckle up, we don't want to hear any complaining, like this stuff is nasty today, a 2 for 5 in your round is a good round, so don't be walking off, mad, and I think you really find out who are going to be the the dirty dogs and who, figure out a way to figure it out type of guys, like this isn't easy. We know that. And sometimes I'll surprise them. Sometimes I'll say like, hey, today's a feel good. You should be able to get going on this. And me and our assistants are kind of winking like, not really, to see how they handle it.
Right.
Because that's, again, the embarrassment. Wait, coach said I'm supposed to be crushing this thing. And why aren't I doing it? So the quicker the guys figure that out and handle that failure like you're talking about, and they're walking around slowly thinking on their way to the next round, how am I going to beat this thing that's better than me right now? It goes a long way rather than getting mad, squeezing okay, I'm going to hammer this thing next round. I'm going to do it. It's like, no, you're going the wrong direction as far as executing and having success. So that's good. I like
have you ever recorded them when they do that?
No, that's funny you said that. Someone mentioned that not too long ago. So they can see kind of how they're reacting.
Oh my gosh. Like we were team bad body language at times this year, like palms up, which drove me absolutely freaking insane. Or like just whiny and like throw your, all the things like we've seen them. Right. So I got so tired of it. I went back to so we have a, shout out to Pitch Aware for installing a camera system at our field. But I went back to like all the instances that I remember. And this took me several hours, but I cut up like a minute and a half of just bad body language clips and showed them in our classroom session. And they were, I tell you what, I want to say it fixed everything, but it was like an eye opener. Cause I legitimately picked every single one of our better players too, that actually, like, I'm not trying to pick on like the smaller freshmen and like use those guys as the example. Like I picked our best players and they were so embarrassed that it fixed a lot of it.
That's pretty cool.
Like, oh my God,
that's a good idea.
That's really bad. So I we'll probably have to do it again this year, but it was one of the things I was like, I'm so tired of this. How can I fix it? And a friend of mine was like, hey, you should get video of, I was like, okay, like, sure, we can do that. So it was something.
Speaking of Aware, we need to get, that's something we're going to do this off season. So hoping.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I know a guy.
Yeah.
That's good.
Steve. Yeah.
Yeah. Steve's my guy. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, let's, you mentioned, the tryouts. So you guys have tryouts. So we have tryouts in May, and then we'll have like an incoming tryout in, August or like fall break ish. But y'all's is in like what, January?
Ours is February. We actually have February, 2 weeks. Okay. About 17 days before tryouts.
Wow.
In the first game. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So
but we also can go year round. We can coach year round too. So that helps.
Okay. Sure. Well, we, one of the things that you mentioned that I would love to be able to highlight is like that day that you bring them in, because it's basically your preseason meeting on, hey, this is all of what's expected.
Yeah.
When did you decide to do that and why?
I did that my very, very first year, and it's gotten better. Obviously, it's evolved. I used to do like 3 hours in the classroom or the clubhouse, and then we'd be on the field forever. And we went through all of our, our plays, bunt defense, coverages, and all the number system and everything that we do. And we do less on the field stuff now than anything. But I think that if you're going to punish a kid or have a consequence for something that you're doing, it needs to be very clear on what the expectations are. And again, those decisions are made on that Saturday. And I tell them, if you're not willing to do this like all year long, if you're on the bench, if you're not getting the innings or whatever, this is your chance right now, because we ask a ton out of you guys between February 6th and May 25th. We're asking you guys so much time, so much effort, perfection, with your peers and things like that. So I think it's important just to have those expectations and know like this is what you're getting into. And then the more experience that we have and the more, or I should say experiences that we have, whether it's our group or other groups, we can talk about, this is why we do this. Remember what happened to so-and-so high school. This is why we do this, and I think it gives them an idea, that they made it. We really don't do a lot for our freshmen in JV as far as like compared to varsity, which I think is normal, but I want them to feel like they made it. And I think that first Saturday is really kind of like I said, a rite of passage that says, hey, this is a family and this is what we expect. And nothing less than what we're talking about is what we're going to get, or you're not going to be around. Well, I've been able to say this luckily in a lot of places is I'm not going to coach attitude, effort, or behavior. None of it. Like we'll move on to the next guy. We're deep enough, especially now where, you're not, I want to coach baseball, coach players and coach baseball, not those three other things. And so that's part of that conversation on that Saturday is telling them what we expect.
Right. No doubt. No, I really like that. And, hey, we didn't do it this year, but I think we did it in bits and pieces rather than all in one day. And I think that would be a really cool thing of, whenever we're able to start practices to be able to do something like that of just, like you said, rite of passage day. And another thing that you do, I don't know if you still do this or not, but Kangaroo Court, you still do Kangaroo Court?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, okay. You gotta share that one. I love this. I am a little bit afraid to do it because I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But you've outlined
you just have
it so
to make
well
sure that you go. Yeah, it's especially nowadays with things that coaches are getting dismissed for and whatnot. But you just have to monitor. Like I'll read all the fines and make sure that they're appropriate going into it. But yeah, it creates a good culture. Kind of razz your teammates a little bit and makes them feel like they're part of something, and tease them when they do something stupid. And I think it really creates kind of a brother-like mentality. If you have a brother, you can, or a best friend growing up, you can tease him all you want. He's not going to get too upset about it because he knows, that you care for him and you love him. And so, yeah, that's we have one player who's reads off the fines. He's a bailiff. The fines can be from $0.25 to $1. We have one of our assistant coaches. He's the judge, and something happens and gives them the floor and gives them a chance to get off the hook, and explains why he left his glove out. And the younger guys will stand up and they'll just I left it out, I'm guilty, and it's easy, court, you're done. But when you get a little bit more savvy, and the older guys will, they'll start to try to weasel their way out of it and say, no, I was just going to the bathroom. I was coming back to take extra work. Remember, I was going to do that, and they try to get their way out of it. It just creates for a fun, breaks up the week. And we do it on Saturday mornings most of the time. But yeah, also going back to that first meeting that I talked about, I do have like every player will get like a folder, and in that folder it has the cards that I sent you, like the practice card, training cards, and game day stuff that they read. But it gives them all like an article, and I say, okay, read this article. You got 3 minutes. We'll read it, and then many times they're leading the discussion. What does this mean? How is this an important article? Maybe it's an unfortunate kid that is a team manager and did this, or there's all kinds of stories that we'll go through, and that's why it takes 3 hours, 3.5 hours, because I let them tell me what they think of it, and some really good stuff comes out of it. And as well, we have a player interview that details what could cause our group to be defeated, or what do you see in a bad teammate. And I save those, and if you see those actions that they wrote down, be it a bad teammate is not caring about the team and being upset about your at bat, it's like, okay, remember when you wrote this? Here's what you put on here. So this has nothing to do with me. This is your own words. This is what you said is going to kill the team, and you're literally doing what you said is going to kill the team. Like that never feels good for a player, and so we can draw back on that and fix that behavior usually. So
sure, oh, that's good. What do you do with the money for Kangaroo Court?
The boys get it. They can do whatever they want with it. A lot of times they'll go out to eat or go to movies, or
cool.
In
That's awesome.
years past, a couple times they like bought the coaches a gift or whatever. But yeah, I don't even know how much is in there. I don't touch it. At the end of the Kangaroo Court, our treasurer who keeps all the money, I have a sheet that has everyone's name on it and the fines that they were given, and so we read off, the last name and how much money they lost in court, and then that money is due before the
That's
following
good.
Saturday. Yeah, if
Yeah.
they don't have their money paid by the following Saturday, we take their glove away, so they have to borrow someone else's glove, and
Oh my gosh.
we make them wear a visor, a softball visor, to practice for the whole day. So they don't want
Oh,
to do
that's
that.
great. No doubt. So we talked about standards earlier. So I'm thinking of, okay, like getting guys to uphold it. And we're in the business of behavior change. So let's say, you're like me, you're in your first year and you're trying to do something different. And, or, your first year there. So you have a kid, let's say you have, a kid that doesn't run on and off the field to your standard. You
Mhm.
take them out of the game is one thing. But you haven't seen something like that change, or it could be, they're late consistently. It's X, Y, or Z. They're always like almost on time right after, when you say to be there. What are some different things that you guys do to, make sure, it is important to you, and you can tell just by how you're explaining things what is important, but give us some ideas on how you do get that behavior changed without, the worst case scenario is removal from the team, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
how do you get them to understand how important it is to you?
Yeah, no, I think just a really serious conversation and telling them why this is important, um, is part of it. There's two ways that you know I've been lucky enough. I feel like, and not always. I mean, when I first started, we were not deep, and there were situations where we had a semifinal game where my shortstop was late, no call, and was about 15 minutes late, and we left. We left the bus, and he didn't play. We luckily won the game. But I have a saying, and I'll tell the boys this at the beginning of the year and the parents: I'd rather lose the right way than win the wrong way. And in my opinion, standards are standards. It's not hard to text. It's not hard to say, Coach, we lift at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I have many players that text me at 5:57 or 6:06 and say, I'm not going to be at lifting today. I don't feel well. And to me, that's a no call, no show. That's, you knew before 5:57 that now it's one thing if you're at the weight room and you're throwing up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I get
Sure.
it, but like that's you sleeping in. That's your alarm not going off. That's you not wanting to get up. So we have conversations about that. We consider that a no call, no show. But I think you talk about how these are the rules and these are the standards. Standards are standards. I mean, when you make a standard, there's no going back on it. It doesn't matter who, what, where, when, and that's something. Jerry Dawson's a legend here in Arizona, coached at Chaparral and won a million state championships. I was lucky enough to reach out to him early on in my career, and I reached out to about 4 or 5 legends here and said, hey, give me some advice. I'm going into first year coaching. And one of the things he said was be consistent. It doesn't matter if they're a big leaguer. It doesn't matter if they're the worst player on the team. When you make a rule and you make a standard, that is it. And, like you said, we're going to be here for a long time, longer than their 4 years are going to be up. This is how it is. This is how I feel that strongly about it. And if you don't do it, you get a warning, you get a punishment. But if it's something that's continual, usually that they understand how serious it is, that they're not going to play or they're not going to be on the team. Um, I've had to dismiss some kids from teams that helped us. I got
Mm-hmm.
rid of a 4-hole closer, one of the years I was at Mountain Point because he wasn't following the standards that we needed. And people thought I was crazy, and maybe I was, but I feel like it was damaging our culture, and we weren't going to be able to win the big one unless we all were on the same page. And so I took a lot of heat for it, but I think that's part of it. I think another way to handle it, to be honest, if it's not your best player or it's not, um, uh, one of your leaders, it's huge and means a lot for one of your 2 or 3 or 4 leader seniors to go up to a player. It doesn't even have to be a young player and say, hey, listen, man, I don't know what's going on, but I'm here doing this. Everyone else is on and off. Everyone else is on time. Like, this isn't cool. Like, this isn't cool
Sure.
at all. And that's
Mm-hmm.
culture. We had a kid when I was at Greenway that he was unbelievable player. And we lift at 5:30 in the morning there, and he wasn't showing up to lifting. He wouldn't show up to lifting. It was quote unquote optional, right? I can't make it mandatory. And so
Sure.
he was new to our school, and he did lift. He went after, went to his private guy, and our guys, we started stretching one day, and I noticed that he was stretching in center field by himself. And I was like, what's going on? I asked the coaches, and no one knew. And I asked one of our team leaders, and I said, hey, what's going on? Why is he out there stretching? He goes, we told him to. If he doesn't want to lift with us in the morning, we know he's going to, hit third and play short every day. He's going to do that. We know that. He's good, but that's fine. We just don't want him to be – we lift at 5:30 in the morning. If he wants to be different, he can stretch, in center field. And so that kid literally never missed a day of lifting. And, again, I didn't have to do anything to change that. It was our kids that were like, this is what we do. If you want to be a part of this, cool. If you don't, then buzz off. And that's kind of how we have the group right now as well.
I love that. So yeah, it's once we get the kid for lack of comprehensible English. But anyway, so once we get the kids bought into like upholding the standards, man, that's big. And that's
game over
thing that we're searching for. Like, and I've tried to have some different side conversations with like, hey, can you go deal with this for me with some different guys? But it sounds like those guys just did it on their own, which is awesome. Yeah. I love to hear that. It's hard. It's really hard to get onto your teammates. Like, I think we lose sight of that too. But like you said, the standard is the standard, but it's also really hard to get onto a guy that you are going to go, eat burgers with after practice or whatever. It's hard to.
And the leaders have to be perfect. That's the hardest part. And I tell them all the time,
sure.
Like, you really have to be damn near perfect, because if you're dogging a sprint, or you're dogging a 90, and then you're going to get on someone 3 weeks later, they remember that time that you didn't dog, and it doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? And that's a humongous responsibility in our program to be a team captain, because of the things that we're asking of our players daily. And so that's a big part of it as well.
How do you elect team captains?
They pick them. Yep, they pick them, and then right after they pick them, I have a conversation with just the two of them and all of our coaches, and tell them this is what it takes to be a team captain. And even this year, we had a player that didn't start down the stretch. He started every game as a junior and most of his senior year, and just down the stretch wasn't starting, and he's a team captain. And his mentality and his leadership was a humongous part of why we won, a state championship, because he could have really poisoned the water and was sour grapes. But again,
sure.
put our brand and our team in front. And I couldn't be, I'm probably more proud of that than I am anything that we did this year with him.
I love that. That's great. So, you are obviously, you draw a line in the sand and say, listen, these are the things that are important to us. And I'll be honest, like anytime that you do that and you push people out of their comfort zone, there's going to be pushback. I'm sure there's pushback from the parents. What is your process of, going about, having a cordial conversation and just saying, hey, like, we outlined all of this stuff and these are the different situations that are going on, or you could even, let's do this. Can you give us an example of how you handle parents who inevitably, I don't know how often it comes up, but I'm assuming that it has in your 10-year career or 15-year career. So can you give us an example of, how your best advice on how we can handle situations for players who aren't upholding those standards and that there is pushback?
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing is there's got to be a order of process on how things happen. And I think the first one is the player has to go to the coach first. If I get sideswiped by a parent about a kid complaining about playing time, the first thing I'm going to ask is, have you talked to your son? And if they answer and say, yes, I have, and I'm unaware of it, that's not cool. That means that they're going home and saying, well, I should be starting over Billy, and Billy sucks. And, that's not a good way to go about it. And I feel like when you ask that and they say no, the conversation is over at that point. And I tell them that in our preseason parent meeting. I said, hey, if you don't have a conversation with your player first, he might tell you, I don't deserve to be playing. I've been terrible the last 2 weeks. I haven't thrown strikes. I haven't, so that's a part of it. But if it gets to where the player has talked to me and is not understanding why he's not getting time, and then he talks to his parents and his parents don't understand, then we have a conversation. I tell our parents, Communication is always welcome. I won't have a conversation with someone on a game day. That's just not a good time for it. I'm pissed or I'm super happy about a win we just pulled off, and you're coming to me with playing time. Seems kind of ridiculous because the ultimate goal is, win games, obviously. But I just talk through it and I tell them what they need to do, and this is why they're not playing. And really, at that point, if they've gone through that process, like, what else is there to say? I don't think that he's good enough to play. My assistants don't think he's good enough to play. So where are we going with this? Like, it's your opinion versus my opinion. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to – that's not – we're going to play the best 9 and whoever gives us the best chance to win with the best attitude. And, some people say, well, you play favorites. Yeah, I do. I play guys that play the best and the guys that work the hardest with the best body language and the best effort. Those are my favorites.
Sure.
And that's pretty easy. There's times where you just will disagree, and you have that every year. And I just say, hey, unfortunately, I don't have anything else to say about this. This is the way it is. If you don't like it, you can go other places or you can do other things. But, I try to tell them at the beginning of the year how important it is to me that there's value in guys, even if you're not a starter, even if you're not a 3-hole. It's really easy to be the starting shortstop and 3-hole of every team. You go out, you work, and you're in the lineup every day. What's not easy is being the backup guy that still has to grind every day, even though he's not going to get any reps. And we talk about that. If a player feels like there's no value in that, then that's a really dangerous position, because now they are complaining about this rather than, I'll get there. I'm just not a starter yet, or I got to do this to be able to get there. And so the parent communication is pretty minimal. I don't hang out with them and be friends with them and things like that. There's boundaries there that they know about. But as far as unhappiness, I think when you go through those levels, it's a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's good. So I've got a couple quick hitters. Well, here, I know you love talking about postseason, like getting ready for postseason play. So if you want to hit on that, because I know didn't you give an ABCA presentation over it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, honestly, it's so funny because people ask that, and it's like, I picture like, all right, it's postseason, so now we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And we honestly do the exact opposite. And I think guys that are new to our club, some sophomores and freshmen, sometimes they're even a little confused. Like, what do you mean we're going to be out here in 45 minutes? Like, this is playoff time. We got to be on top of our game. We got to be sharp. And, we spend so much time and detail with our pick plays and stealing outs and executing early on in the year that I honestly think that we lose games. We don't have a preseason tournament either, like most teams. We have both of ours in the middle of the year. But I think we lose games because our heads are spinning, especially with the new guys, like our bump plays and our coverages. And like, there's so much going on that when we do get to playoff baseball, we don't need to talk about it. We're dialed into that. We can, hit individual D a little bit and we're loose and we're not stressed. We have 6-hour class, so that helps. We start a little bit earlier, but I mean, we're out of there in an hour and 15 minutes, including stretching and everything else. So the trick is to put everything in place ahead of time. I'm like you said earlier, like planner and kind of organized and whatnot. Like all that stuff is done and ahead of time. So, and I tell our players and tell our coaches, like, the hay's in the barn. Like, we're ready for this. We don't need to do anything. We've been in playoff mode since February. Certain things I think that teams get eliminated. I'm not sure if I should be sharing this secret, but I will. Okay, sure. I think teams get eliminated in the playoffs all the time because someone's throwing with velocity. And as soon as you see a guy, it used to be like 88 to 90. Now that's, more attainable and hittable. But like when you see a guy that's throwing hard, I feel like many teams get, whether it's intimidated or they just get beat because the guy's throwing hard. And I go to every single playoff game I can, whether we're in it or not, and I see that. And I've never understood that. So probably 10 years ago, we do something called our Monday drills, where we do certain things every Monday, PFPs. It's really the only thing that we have prescribed that the boys know they're going to get on that day. And one of the things we do is velocity in the cage, and we have the cage just pumped up. I mean, it is gas. And early on, they can't touch it. Sometimes guys catch on sooner than others, but I want a kid to, if he throws 92 and he's throwing good pitches and we lose, I can live with that. I can be on the bus trip home and say, man, that guy's just better than us, and he got us. But when he's leaving balls in the middle of the plate and you're losing because you're not used to that, that's a coaching problem, in my opinion.
Sure.
And every time you lose a game, that's the first person I look at myself and say, okay, he made that error. Does he need more ground balls? He didn't make the right throw. Does he need more of this? Like, I look at those things, but I feel like that's a big part of, playoff baseball is just being prepared. And
Sure.
you're gonna scare your kids if, you're like, okay, Tuesday we're seeing, Johnny and he throws 93. So let's go get the cage ramped up, and on BP, we're going to use the machine. It's going to, like, you're facing the guy tomorrow and you think that that's going to be a good fit. Like that, talk about white knuckle and being scared going in. It's like, we've trained that into them, whether they know it or not, so that it doesn't look like it's as much as it is.
Right.
And I think honestly, all these little things, like, I don't want this to sound arrogant, but when we get on the field, we feel like we're better than the other team because we do this and we do that. And, those little things that we talked about earlier, we just think that, our work ethic and our separation is by calling out plus and minus double plays and saying, hey, and all the things that we do that are different, I think gives us a little bit of confidence. And other schools obviously do many of the same thing, but I kind of psychologically tell our boys that maybe they don't do this, and if they don't do this and this, then they got a problem on their hands here in a couple hours. So just to try to create some confidence for them.
I love it. Well, Matt, I'm gonna just open up the mic for you and just kind of say, is there anything else that you want to share with us before you go, or anything else that that's important with your program that you didn't get the chance to share yet?
Yeah, I think only thing that I have is like adapting to your team. Like there's groups where I can look at it and say, man, I just don't think we're going to hit. So let's rally the troops and tell them how we're going to score runs. It doesn't have to be, hitting doubles all across the yard. I knew we were going to hit this year, so we didn't spend as much time working on the importance of hit and run. Obviously it is important, but not like we did, when I had seven freshmen starting. It's like, we're not going to hit 8 doubles this year. And if that's the approach that we're going to do, is to try to get them to do that, they're going to be sinking, and I think just being versatile and having a backup plan. And, 1 year we, 2006 or 13, we won state record 29 games in a row. And I was a young coach, and we lost in the state tournament, and I took it hard and tried to figure out, how do we lose? We won 29 games in a row, and then we lose 2 out of 3 in the state tournament. Makes no sense. Well, we were winning games by out-hitting teams and getting kind of lucky in some walk-offs and this and that, but we didn't have a drag bunt, execution plan. It was all just rip it and grip it. And I think that year, unfortunately, we didn't win. I feel bad to those players, but that changed and catapulted my career as a coach, saying we got to have a backup plan, because if you're going into a fight knowing that if this doesn't work, I could also pull this out, an ace in the hole, that gives you a lot more freedom as a hitter to know, like, we don't have to score right now. If we have to, we could drag punt, we can hit and run, we can move, we could score. Like, there's all kinds of pressure we can put on them if it's not our day offensively. So I think just adapting to your team and knowing what your team can do that changes every year. And I think that's the beauty of coaching. Like this morning, I'm looking at sophomores and freshmen and saying, okay, where do these guys fit in? What kind of group are we going to be able to have? And then, having that plan before you go into the year and just kind of rallying the troops that way is great. And then the last thing is like trying to build. I got this from Butch Chafin, building a vocabulary. If you're going to pull a guy aside and have a 15-minute conversation to him about what he's doing wrong, you're not going to have enough time to fix guys. So creating some vocabulary, whether it's, get on a good line or control your barrel or back hip or whatever, so that guys can quickly adjust is important. And obviously that vocabulary is going to be, relevant to your program, what you teach, but just having a system for that is good. And then your practice plans or training plans is 100% the most important thing, what you're going to do. And I think I spend probably an hour, honestly, at least an hour a day on what we're going to do, and ask all my assistant coaches, like, what do we need? How is this, creative? How is this going to be fun for the boys and, productive? But if your training plan on the board is, BP, and then it's defense, and then it's bullpens, and then it's this, like, that ain't it. That's not fun to go out and train to do that. So just putting a lot of thought into what you're trying to do to get them better for now and for, again, the playoffs. So that's all I have.
That's great. So Matt, if you don't mind, how can we get in contact with you if we had any questions?
Yeah. You can take my email and my cell phone down. My email is Denny, DENNY .Matt, MATT at CUSD80.com. And my cell phone number is 602-373-6934. Love having conversations with coaches, new and old. So any kind of dialogue I can get, I crave that and try to learn from anybody. So that's huge.
Thank you so much for listening to Ahead of the Curve. If you would do us a huge favor, leave a rating or review wherever you are listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone and tag us on social media. That would help us so much with growing the show and helping others to stay ahead of the curve.